And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And with this one, I wanted to cover how to beat RMP, more importantly, from the healer perspective. So how to heal against Rogue Mage Priest. Rogue Mage Priest is probably the best composition in the game right now. So it is very important to know what to do when you are facing against Rogue Mage Priest. So the main component of this strategy is that you need to maintain distance from your allies. You want to always be maximum distance away from them. This way, the Subtlety Rogue, which wants to stun everybody on your team, is going to have a more difficult time because you're very far away. Now, they still will likely stun every target on your team, but it will give you precious seconds to anticipate who they are going to attack, and in those precious seconds, use defensive cooldowns accordingly. So that's what I will be covering in this video here, is how to create that space, how to see it coming, and then how to respond once it's actually been engaged on you. Because if you can maintain this far distance of play, then it becomes a lot easier to manage the limitless amounts of crowd control that this composition has available. But if you don't maintain the distance, then you will likely unravel very quickly. So here's the game begins. You generally don't want to come out of stealth right away if you can as a healer. You would like to get combat if you're playing a healer that doesn't have stealth as soon as possible. This way that you don't get sapped. That is the main avoidance, is sap, and also the main avoidance of being attacked personally as the Restoration Druid. So in this match here, the Warrior is likely to be the target as the Mage is currently sapped. So I'm anticipating the stun on the Warrior and I'm standing far away from the Warrior. This way I can open up with some of my bigger heals without being immediately crowd controlled. So I'm just waiting, anticipating, seeing where the Rogue is going. We don't know who they're going to attack yet, which is why it can be stressful against Rogue Mage Priest, which is why it is better to maintain distance here. You can see we have a triangle with the moon on the right, the X on the left, and me, the circle in the back. You can see we've created a triangle and we're all very far away from each other. And this is important. Now the Rogue is attacked, so I can start with Innervate, Overgrowth, and Iron Bark. And the reason I've Iron Barked is because of the combustion here from the Fire Mage. Now with my Overgrowth, my Send Word, and my Iron Bark, that target is going to take no damage. We have survived their initial attack. Now I can shift gears into offense mode. So I'm going to utilize Ursul's Vortex, which pulls the Rogue back in on the life grip. I'm going to drop down whatever crowd control, but I don't want to get too close, right? Because I'm still off stun DR. The Rogue could try and stun me, try and swap to me, get Bark Skin. But if I don't push and try and stop the Rogue's re-stealth, it could be dangerous as well. So you have a tough choice here. I opted to just re-stealth myself. This way, the Rogue's in the same position as the start of the game now. Where is the Rogue going to go? They can't sap me, they can't stun me, they can't see me. So if I just stay far away from my Warrior, who is likely to be the target, or my Mage, then I can open out of stealth with some big heals, or I can open out of stealth with some crowd control, maybe a bash, a disorienting roar. So here I open with a stun onto the Rogue to prevent further stun lock on my Mage, and I can easily recover. And because the Mage doesn't have combustion, there's really not a lot of damage going out, so I don't need to panic in that situation. But as soon as I've gotten in there and I've got my work done, I've stunned the Rogue, I'm back 40 yards away. Now, Smoke Bomb comes down to my Warrior. You can use AoE heals that go through Smoke Bomb, so Efflorescence here is what I've decided to use, and the Rogue ends up trying to blind me. Now, I don't really want to Trinket, just because the Rogue has already used the Stun Lock, the Smoke Bomb, the Mage is in a sheep, and the target isn't stunned that they're attacking. That's the scariest moment. You can see, because the Warrior isn't stunned, he can just run away and survive during that time. Now, normally you would say you always want to Trinket a blind, but I would say you only want to Trinket a blind if the target that is being attacked is also stunned. If the target can do something, then there's not really, it's not necessary to Trinket because they're going to be able to survive on their own, and the Rogue Mage's damage is going to kind of just plummet off the face, right? Now, the Rogue Mage, they're reloading, trying to get the combustion, waiting for their Shadow Dance, and then they'll send a huge spike of damage that you need a response to, and as soon as you've answered that response, you don't really need to overcommit beyond that point. So here I'm staying a little bit too close to my Mage, honestly. The Rogue could get a double stun with where we are, so I decided to use Fleshcraft. This is going to immune me to CC and allow me to reposition if I need to. Also, just going into stealth as a Druid against Rogue Mage is a really good idea, because you can't be Dragon's Breath, you can't be CC'd, and then you can give your biggest heal from stealth, and then if you do get CC'd, you're going to be all right. So here they initiate a swap to my Mage, so I overgrowth my Mage from stealth. I prioritize Dispelling the Malediction as a healer over a Polymorph. The Mind Games in Malediction can generally be more threatening. Your warrior's not going to like it having to sit in all these polymorphs, but your warrior's going to like your mage still having an ice block. So I would generally prioritize that. But now we're back into that triangle, right? I've pulled 40 yards away from the mage on the left, the moon, and the warrior on the right, the X. And that's just my goal, is to just stay back here, kind of drag the fight on as much as I can, try and anticipate, are they trying to attack me? Who are they trying to go after? And it gives me those seconds to be able to react. Like, we're watching this in half speed. If we're playing this at full speed, you would see that it becomes a lot more difficult. And then you can also just drink. If the rogue mage is constantly pulling away and resetting, you can try and drink. Downside is you might get sapped. I was fortunate enough to have a dot here. That could have otherwise been pretty bad getting sapped. But now they've put me on sap DR, which tells me that they basically have to attack me. If I'm on polymorph DR, their only option really is to attack me, because a cheap shot into a half polymorph isn't going to really be a lot. So I'm pre-hotting myself and I'm getting into the room. And then I saved my adaptive swarm to figure it out. And you can see, look, they wanted to swap to me all along. They were baiting me on the warrior with the kidney shot because they didn't have polymorph DR. I knew they'd attack me. I was pre-hotted. My auto frenzy triggers. I positioned in the room out of line of sight of their priest, so mind games isn't a threat. And then I'm going to be able to survive. And that's something that you'll kind of pick up on. If the rogue mage throws a CC on you that ends up breaking or something happens to it, they probably want to swap to you as a healer, because they don't want to wait the huge amount of time before that CC comes up. But now that I'm on stun DR and can't be attacked, I'm going to push onto their healer and crowd control their healer, because there's no threat of me dying. They can't stun me for at least another 10, maybe 12 seconds. So I can get a bit more aggressive during that time, get a clone on their healer. And then I should be starting to think about, like, maybe I need to run away after this, because the rogue is in stealth. I'm still keeping hots on myself, and the main reason I'm doing this is because my warrior still has Trinket, my mage still has Trinket, I still have Trinket, but I don't have Bark Skin. So this may be the case where they start racing me down. They're running low on mana. So I reposition out in the open. I'm pulling back towards the room, trying to get away from the priest so that I can avoid getting mind games. That's the biggest threat. Meanwhile, my team is just continuing to chunk down the mage. They get cauterized. We're burning the priest's mana. I reposition in the room, and here I'm anticipating a big attack on me. So I'll use Tranquility, and with the new honor talent, makes you immune. So look at this. The rogue pops all of his cooldowns. Immune. Completely immune. And how was I able to do that? Because I maintained far distance, saw the rogue stunning the targets, and saw that they weren't committing to those targets. Then when the rogue runs just around the corner, I can immune it with a Fleshcraft, immune it with a Tranquility, get into bear form, pre-overgrowth it. I have a couple of globals to respond. And then as soon as we've survived it, we shift gears. We're going to start jumping on top of the priest and start getting crowd control on the priest as soon as possible, and really then start to get aggressive. So with Rogue Mage, you're never going to win in a fight of offense. They have better offense. They have the best control in the game. So you need to block that control, then shift gears, then throw it back at them as soon as possible without overextending yourself, because the other win condition is the fallback of just mana. Now here the warrior has been blinded. So blinding a warrior is either a bait or desperation. I don't think that you should trinket a blind unless it's absolutely necessary, because then you open yourself up to getting stunned later on. So my warrior sits the blind. But with blind out of the way, now I'm more free to use my medallion as the healer if I need to, if I'm being attacked, right? Because we've already used Tranquility Bubble. Fleshcraft's coming up pretty soon. We could use that to avoid an attack. I don't really like how close this fight is getting to me in this room at the moment, right? Because the rogue is right there. This becomes a lot harder to react. So I'm just going to pull into the room out of line of sight of the mage and the priest. Even if my mage is in a sheep, I would rather be out of line of their team and let my mage sit a half sheep and then come back once the rogue has been peeled. Since the rogue has been put into a stun, I charge to the priest and stun the priest. I could try to go for a clone here. It would be risky because the rogue could shadow step to me, but I decided to go for it anyways. And we end up getting the clone actually on the mage. I think the comms here was polymorph out of my bash on the priest because I thought I would get stopped by the rogue. And then I was going to try and clone the mage in case they set up on me. Then I can immune CC Fleshcraft in the middle of the map to continue cloning the mage and to continue sheeping the priest and not worry about the rogue stunning me. And then I can start pushing towards the priest and try and clone. But you really want to be careful in this position, right? Because I'm on top of the priest, I'm on top of the rogue, and I'm on top of the mage effectively. So if I get stun locked here, it could be deadly. We're being really aggressive here. And I think the main reason we are is because we still have all of our medallions. So we're trying to push in and maybe close out the game. You can play a little bit more aggressively when you have the medallions, but when you don't have the medallion, you need to be very careful. So I'm going to use High Mountain and get out of there. I'm like, I'm too close. I'm too close. I need to get away from the fire. I'm going to burn my hands. I don't want that. Get back into the room, figure out where they're going. So they've stunned the warrior. They're dancing. So they've committed to the warrior, it looks like at the moment. So I'll toss out a rejuve, line of sight. Their mage is in a polymorph, right? So by also buying this time, your other allies can intercept and stop damage from incoming. So I've Iron Barked mage in case they swap mage, and I've got full hots on warrior with Cenarian ward. This way I've got both of them at least covered, because I wasn't sure at the time who they were going to attack. I should have honestly have waited with the Iron Bark a little bit, but seeing this back in half speed, going back in the past, here they're completely I can put them in a checkmate position by just drinking. So I'm going to go into the room with full hots on my warrior, a Swiftmend extended Cenarian ward, so my warrior is going to be A-okay for a long time. I can pressure them to do something by just drinking to full mana, not by running in on top of them and getting myself killed, not by trying to push too aggressively and getting interrupted and somebody else going down. The best way I can pressure them is by drinking to full mana, because from their perspective, it's like, oh no, this druid's full mana. They still have all of their trinkets. This is not going to be good for us, right? And then as soon as I've got the mana, I'm in stealth. I can time some of my bigger heals like an overgrowth once I'm certain who they're hitting, which at this time I'm still not certain. I think they might even want to go after me. So I position back to the room. I line of sight the shadow step, and we get mass invised on the kidney, so we can't be polymorphed out of the kidney shot. But this is still combustion from the mage. The priest is getting aggressive, going for Dora Shadow Sphere out of the kidney shot. So this could be a point in the game where your mage needs to ice block. But in reality, we actually forced their mage to ice block with pressure. They left our warrior open a little bit too long, so it kind of feels bad for them. In their own go, it was they that needed to block. But now that we're out of CC, we can get Cenarian ward up. We can get a rejuve and a Swiftmend. That's the best kind of recovery heal to be able to then get aggressive onto the other healer. And I want to push for a stun on this priest. This priest has no trinket. Their mage has no block. I want to start getting aggressive. I tell my mage my mage to go for polymorph, but he says no. I'm just going for the kill. So I clone the rogue to try and stop the rogue from peeling. We proc the seed onto the mage, and then I push towards the priest to CC the priest so he doesn't heal the seed as soon as possible. And we end up killing the seed before the clone was even necessary. And you can see how much more safe in this game. Like, think about how safe that was. Maybe there was one point where I was considering blocking in a 6-minute game against RMP. It is way easier to slow it down, stay far away from the crowd control, spread out, and give your team time to anticipate and peel and respond, because then you can make yourself really untouchable. And you can then start to overwhelm the enemy team. So this would be my best advice for fighting against Rogue Mage. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave it with a thumbs up and comment down below with your thoughts. What do you do against Rogue Mage? What's frustrating you right now in the meta? What would you like to see a video about? Because on this channel, I want it to be a great resource for education, entertainment, and news. So make sure you hit that sub button if you want to stay in the know and now, or potentially pique your interest for World of Warcraft in the future. I'm streaming on twitch.tv/Supatease every day at 11 a.m. We're doing viewer games at that time. So if you'd like to push your rating, I've helped close to 60 people now get to their desired rating. And I do some evening, afternoon streams as well, where I'm going to try to be pushing for rank 1 in 3v3 as well. So if that interests you, make sure you check it out. And other than that, thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next video.